Gary Edwards, Executive Director of the Washington Redskins Original Americans Foundation. What is the mission of this foundation?
The mission is to provide awareness of the needs in Indian country throughout America, and then to bring those needs back and to share them with other professional sports organizations and partners that want to partner with Indian country to make the quality of life for Native Americans living on reservations better. And then once we share that information, then we partner to actually make it a reality.
Tell us about the process, when the process preparing for the announcement we have here at the owners' meetings began, and some of the trips that Redskins owner Dan Snyder and yourself have taken.
Well, before I met Dan, I only met Dan about 4 months ago, and before I met Dan, he had already been on a couple trips to Indian country. So he asked me how it would be the best way to find out the needs and if the tribes were willing to work with the Washington Redskins and other NFL teams to help deal with some of the problems that exist out there. And I suggested that, that he contact the tribal leadership because each tribe is a sovereign entity and that each community will have their own set of needs. And these needs have their own process that they go through within the individual tribe. And tribal leaders then decide on how that they want to address those issues. So we did a survey of 100 tribes and we asked them for the quality of life needs as it related to their community, their elders, their children, and their quality of life. And so from that, we then were able to let Dan know about certain pressing issues, and some of which were immediate, and Dan dealt with them immediately. So, and then from that we began to work to develop a Original Americans Foundation that was Dan's idea. It was his visions of how we can help the most people in Indian country.
Tell us about your background, your cultural background, and why you decided to take this on.
Well, I'm Native American, and I've worked in Indian country pretty much all my adult life. We've had major issues dealing with Indian country that myself and friends of mine and our organization, the National Native American Law Enforcement Association, have worked to help remedy. Our main purpose is to give back to the communities from which we come. We felt like as federal law enforcement officers that we had the best training in the world, and we wanted to make sure that our tribal communities also shared in that training. So a lot that we've done with tribal communities have been with education and with scholarships and sponsorships. And then we've also done medical blitzes and health blitzes, and some reservations have problems with wild dogs and things like that, so we help alleviate those particular problems. And it's amazing how Indian country is, because when we shared in particular that particular instance that with a community that had problems with wild dogs, they then volunteered to go with the group that helped us to South America to help other countries down there deal with wild dog problems. So it was really a great cycle.
Gary, through your travels, how is the Redskins name accepted? And for you as a Native American, how do you see yourself working with this foundation with the name Redskins?
Well, to me, the name Redskins is a historical fact for Indian people. And it has a special place in Indian culture, in Indian history. This name was a name that was created by Indian leaders, by our respected Indian leaders. And they were proud to be red men. They were proud that their skin was red. And whenever that they dealt with the federal government with regard to things like treaty, different elements of treaty negotiations and wars and various issues, where multiple tribes such as the Dene, such as the Winnebago, the Sac and Fox, as they would come together as a group, they needed to speak as a group. So in order to speak as a group, the tribal leaders then called themselves Redskins, and they called the federal government people Whiteskins. So when they would actually have negotiations, they would be the Redskins negotiating with the Whiteskins, and that way they spoke as a large group of Indian people. Many times today you will see misleading statements that indicate that name was not an Indian name, but somebody else used it, and that's just simply untrue. We've researched it, we've looked everywhere, and we know how the name was created, we know how it was evolved, and it was a powerful name. And it's a powerful name that still exists today. I myself, I'm proud to be a Redskin. I'm proud to be a part of the Redskin Nation. So this is something that I think that our children need to know about. They need to remember. They need to honor our elders.
To wrap up segment one of our interview quickly, how desperate are the circumstances in the tribes you visited that this foundation can help ultimately improve their way of life?
Well, I think to sum it up real quickly, you know, you can look at this in two ways: what you see and what you hear. What you see is that you see when you visit the reservations, a lot of the reservations in the continental United States, you'll see a poverty rate in some of those reservations that's over 50%. In some reservations, you see unemployment at 86%. You compare that to the national average for the poverty rate, which is arguably around 9.2%, and you can see a vast gap between the quality of life needs on reservations and for Indian people on reservations as opposed to our current culture and our current way of life off the reservations. So consequently, what you hear is that you hear that, that the plight of Indian people go across a complete continuum from the basic, needing the basic things such as water and food and shelter, to a mid-level needs of athletic, children athletic and educational programs and facilities, to a much more complex need of wellness, health care, economic development. So this is, when you get out and you visit the reservations, these are the things that you see and you realize, and that you hope that with these particular ideas that you have that might be able to help these things, that you'll be able to find somebody to make those hopes a reality. And for me, that's the reason why I decided to take this job. For my whole life of working with our organization before, which is the National Native American Law Enforcement Association, you know, we tried to help everywhere we could with athletic scholarships, with training and various things, and we were able to every year to do something, but it was small. And I realized immediately when I got to know Dan Snyder and his vision, you know, for the Original Americans Foundation, that I could help more people with him in a very short period of time than I could ever help with throughout my whole lifetime. So that's the reason why that I, you know, joined on to the Original Americans Foundation.
Gary, thank you. We'll see you for part two of our interview.
Okay.